Everybody gets everybody. I correct everybody.
Okay. Well,
My
thank you
name is
for being
Scandinavian,
willing.
not Jewish.
Okay. Well, Aron is all right, and I'm Scandinavian. My name is Durband, if you say it the right way, which is German, and then my mother's from Norway, so got kind of German and Norwegian.
Very good.
Anyway,
As am I.
we're going to have some fun today. I am literally doing my third of these this week. We did one yesterday and one earlier in the week, and this will be our next one. So everybody, please put your questions in the chat. If you want to talk live, we'll do it at the end, probably not here early. And you can put that in the chat. Also, just raise your hand. I think those of you that are regulars know that. And this is going to be an interview with Aron. And I don't think he has a presentation ready. If he does, I wasn't told that, but if he does, it's great. We
I
love
wasn't
having
told to have one.
presentations. Well, you're fine. You're good. I'm just gonna, you and I are just gonna chat. And what kind of dog? Let's start with that one. What kind of dog do you got? This gorgeous
Polar
thing.
bear. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I
He is
I
a Great
have
Pyrenees.
I have a peer also. So
Do you?
yeah, and I've had working dogs on my ranch for just about 20 years. So and they're awesome dogs. I got videos of him standing up to a bear and looking down a mountain lion and all kinds of things.
The best one
So
I've seen
tell
so
us
far was a video of one Pyrenees in the Pyrenees, surrounded by five or six wolves, and he
oh
backed them all
wow,
down. He was surrounded by them and still backed them down.
they're amazing. Yeah, they have some kind of a aura that the game sense because mine was not scared, like you said, of a bear and much, 5 times his weight or more, maybe more than that. So tell us a little about yourself, just kind of back to your far back as you want to go, high school, childhood, you name it. Where you're at, where are you at in the world, by the way?
I'm in
Where's your
Texas.
okay? What part? I know Texas pretty well,
I'm
so
in the
tell me.
Dallas area. I've lived in a
Okay,
lot of places in the Southwest that were had beautiful natural wonders and had great people and all of that, but no jobs. The one thing about
okay,
Dallas was I always had a job in Dallas, so eventually practicality demanded that I live in Dallas.
very cool.
Yeah.
I have very good friends that live in Tyler, and I have ones that live in a little place called Saline, and that's kind of north of Tyler. So anyway, and then ones that live over uh, west of Dallas in Cooper, I think is the area. No, that's east. Anyway, no, don't know the area that well. So tell us what tell me your background. Where'd you grow up? It sounds like you maybe been around the different parts of the world. Maybe I don't know.
My parents
U.S. Or,
were flighty and irresponsible and divorced. So
okay,
when I would go visit my dad, he always lived in a different place. And most of the time he lived in places that either had no airport or the only way to get there was by plane. So you either couldn't get there by plane or you could only get there by plane. That's the places that he lived.
okay,
And then I would come back to mom and she'd be living in a different apartment, maybe a different state, and he usually lived in a different state. So by the time I moved to Texas at 14, I had already lived in 9 other states,
oh wow,
mostly floating around the Los Angeles area. And I think that's important
and
because Los Angeles in the 1970s and the early 70s, when I lived there, there's something about the culture of the time that kind of stuck with me.
so give me a little more specifics about where near LA or in the LA area because
Oh,
I live there too.
I never lived in Los Angeles itself, but I lived all around it. I mean, I lived in Cudahy, Orange County, Lincoln, uh, I'm trying to remember the names now. Huntington Beach, Long Beach. It's been a long time since I've gone through the list, but I mean, we would move up to 8 times a year. Santa
Oh,
Fe
wow.
Springs, Norwalk.
Wow. You did go all over.
Yeah.
So I was born in Inglewood at Centinela Hospital, but only was there for about 3 months. And my dad, who was a pilot, um, moved to Lancaster. So I did, my dad, mom, and myself. I was an only child, and we moved to Lancaster, which is north of LA and in the high desert. And we were there until I was going into my junior year in high school, when he was transferred down to Fountain Valley, or he was transferred to Huntington Beach, but we moved to Fountain Valley, which is right next to Huntington Beach. And I then lived there, and those were my two places through my young life. And then I went to UC Irvine for college, so I spent time in the Irvine area. And then I went to grad school in San Diego, so I spent time in San Diego. So that's my California top part of my life. So.
Yeah. So probably the most pivotal moment of my life was round about Y2K. I get an internet job. I'm on the internet, up doing unlimited overtime for this company that needed people to just work all the time. And I find it's a very easy job. I can multitask and do other things while I'm doing this. And so I found myself taking advantage of the internet access, and I found myself in a place called Talk.Origins back in the days of Usenet, and that was arguing evolution versus creationism, which I always thought was an interesting argument. And I would have scientists on one side and the religious extremists on the other, and pretty quickly I would be able to see who had the goods on any given question. But what
Wow, that's
what
fun.
turned me around was when somebody in the fundamentalist groups started they were telling me that that their preachers had gotten in line with all these other preachers across the state. And so they're all going completely against the Johnson Amendment, telling their congregations to vote as a block for these specific people so that they could get, extreme fundamentalists. And the people I was talking to at the time were Reconstructionists, R.J. Rushdoony and the Chalcedon Institute, that sort of thing. And they were talking about how they had already positioned judges and senators and school board members and all of this, not just across the state, but across the country. And so they had a 5-year plan to overturn democracy and replace it with theocracy, essentially what Project 2025 is doing right now. So they were planning for a Kitzmiller versus Dover sort of a trial that they thought was going to happen about when that did, but they expected that the Bush appointed conservative Christian judge would rule the other way. And that they said was supposed to be the first step to get to it, like it was explained in the leaked memo from the Discovery Institute. They wanted people to distrust science because that would make them susceptible to religious instruction. And so they were trying to undermine evolution, and therefore, and that caused me to create my channel advocating for evolutionary instruction and trying to do what little I could against, the Heritage Foundation and the Chalcedon Institute and other agencies like that.
Very cool. And tell us the name of your current organization. And later on, at the end, I'll make sure other people know it. So we do it again so that people can get in touch with you if you'd like them to. And if not, no big deal. We
Well,
won't do
I'm
it.
a full-time activist, and my channel is ARONRA, Aron Ra, as is my Patreon, patreon.com/ARONRA. And I live off of donations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
which has given
everybody,
me the
please
ability to
keep.
give presentations at different places. I give testimony. I've testified before the state house a number of times, both in Texas and in California. And I even gave invocations here and there. Including one in Boise.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, I gave an invocation at the invitation of the Satanic Temple in Boise.
Okay. How long ago was that?
4 years, I think.
Oh, fairly recent. Okay. So, Pat, after the pandemic or right in the middle of it, it sounds like maybe.
You know what? I honestly can't remember.
Yeah.
I want to say that it was after.
Okay.
And the reason I joined the Satanic Temple was because I had to admire how they were defending church-state separation. They were defending our constitutional right to freedom of religion, which the primary enemy of freedom of religion has always been religious extremists who have advocated, who have argued that you have freedom of religion, meaning that you have the freedom to believe in Jesus however you want to, but that's it. People have said that, yeah, Christians have religious freedom, nobody else.
So, that whole process in your life started when you were about how old? How long has this been? So, how long have you followed the path you're on?
I want to say 30, 34, something like that. Like I said, it
That
was
is
around Y2K.
that is very cool. You did say that. You said Y2K timeframe. Um, well, that's very cool. We love to have you. Will be the first one that's been probably as strongly aligned with what your views are as you are. That's great. And we've not had really any major, I would, as you would describe them, sort of Jesus extremists. We've had people that would be leaning more towards theocracy than maybe either agnosticism or atheism. But still, we like to hear from everybody with every kind of belief, and I love the fact that you're willing and able to give yours. By the way, I support two or three different organizations that do all their fundraising through Patreon. So everybody, please, and at the end, Mark, make sure you get down Aron's Patreon.
Aron,
Uh,
Yeah,
yes.
Aaron,
got
I
it in the
said it
chat.
again. I apologize. Anyway, so how tell us how sort of your daily life goes now. I assume you are you doing anything else to earn a living, or is everything you're making coming from this whole effort now?
Everything it ends up being on my channel. So
Good.
I do. I'm on the board of directors for American Atheists, but that doesn't pay anything. I mean, everything that I do, money wise, comes from my lectures or other video content. I mean, I have been doing for the last few years a series on explaining, science documentaries explaining phylogeny. Like the script I'm working on right now is on dinosaurs, on literally Dinosauria, which sounds trivial, but it took several videos to get up to this, like over 10 videos to get up to where we're talking about dinosaurs, and everything previous to that was not dinosaurs yet. It was all these other categories that are not dinosaurs, just within
By the way,
reptiles.
yeah, I was going to say, how would you define a dinosaur? And you just said it was a reptile for one thing, but because obviously, if a person's belief is that the world is billions of years old, which a number of people have that, and I'm included in that, then you've got to have um, lesser diverse and organized organisms that would have preceded dinosaurs. So that's why
Well,
I was just asking.
there's quite a vast list of reptiles outside of dinosaurs that are not dinosaurs. And part of the lecture I'm working on right now is talking about silosaurids and whether they are dinosaurs or not, because they're so very close to it. And previous ones would include thalattosaurs and ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs and um, Placodonts, and there's a bunch of different lineages
And
previous
what
to
would
that.
you say is the current group of reptiles that are closest to the historic dinosaurs? That you mentioned a bunch of names there, but what would be a living thing that our audience would know about that's a reptile that might be closest to what dinosaurs?
Well, saying that a reptile is probably going to confuse some people because I have a parrot right here next to me. He is a literal dinosaur.
Okay. What kind of parrot?
It's a double yellow-headed Amazon.
Oh, cool. I used to have a pet store and a retail pet store here in Boise many years ago, and we had a lot of tropical birds. And
I'm trying to coax him out, but he's not taking
oh,
the bait.
we'd love to see him if he comes out.
If he'll come out, I don't know if he will.
Does
Yes,
he does he hang with the pier?
he does not like the pier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my dog knows not to mess with the bird. He doesn't mess with any of my animals, which I like.
By the way, the bird's probably being very smart in at least doubting the pier. You know?
I am fortunate that dogs at least will see that you love an animal and they realize they should not hurt that animal because you love it. Whereas cats learn not to hurt that animal if you're watching.
They're smarter than dogs. And I'm not a cat person. So for me to say that, that's saying a lot. And I actually do agree. I do think it's true. Who knows? So back to you and your current status. What would you say you'd spend the most time doing as it relates to your belief system? Getting additional knowledge so you can even be better in the way that you defend it,
I
or
don't have a belief
spending
system
time. Okay. All right. So your
because I
thought
understand that
process
a
then.
belief system is when you're trying to believe something. And I don't want to believe anything.
Okay.
I
Well,
want to know, I want to be able to understand something, and I want to be able to improve my understanding. The only way to
yeah.
improve your understanding is to seek out the flaws in your current perception and correct them. So
So
my understanding, well,
tell us about a flaw you found in the last period you can remember that you've then changed your views because of.
one of the biggest ones was that I was raised to believe that monkeys or that apes and monkeys were separate things, sisters to each other, and that humans were in a sister group to that. Because I'm a little older, and then they had a taxonomic system that they no longer use. See, 1735, Carolus Linnaeus comes up with the system naturale. He invents taxonomy essentially. And the thing that freaked him out about it was that he was a creationist. He thought that new species could only come about as an act of special creation by God. But he noticed this pattern that you don't just have species in the kinds of kinds that he would expect. Instead, everything is within a parent category, and then the parent categories are themselves, you siblings within a larger parent category, and so there's a whole family tree. Phylum, kingdom, or kingdom, phylum, class, order, all of that. And that didn't make sense from a creationist standpoint. And one of the problems he had with that was that he could not distinguish humans from apes. And so he wrote a letter about this to his contemporaries, to the scientific community of his time, when he said that he cannot tell the difference between humans and apes, that there was not a diagnostic characteristic to distinguish us. And so he demanded that the scientific community come up with some explanation for, because he classified uh, four subspecies of humans, and actually six, and two of them were chimpanzees and orangutans, which he classified with humans. And so the scientific community just went ape shit over that. And they could not come up they couldn't answer his question. They couldn't show him a diagnostic characteristic to distinguish humans from apes. So what they did was they did an arbitrary construct to create Pongo, which is a classification that they put all the apes into, and then Homo to put all the humans into, and then just declared them separate. Well, in the last 30, 40 years or so, not just fossil finds, but also genetics have confirmed that we are in fact apes, not just sisters to them. We are a subset of that group. And so they've had to restructure the taxonomy so that Homo is now a subset of Hominidae, which is the great apes, and Pongo is now a sister of Homoines. Pongo is just orangutans, which is there's three living species of orangutans, and then there were a handful of fossil types like Cevapithecus, Ramapithecus, Gigantopithecus, and so on. So we are now classified formally again, but just like we were 300 years ago, we are again classified as a subset of apes, which are themselves a subset of monkeys. So when I first got into this around about Y2K, I get into this argument with a taxonomist who's telling me that humans are monkeys, and I'm trying to argue that they are not because that's the way I was taught. And eventually I had to concede, much to my chagrin, and I did, and against my will because he was an asshole, I had to concede that he was right. And so I had to change my perspective. That was the biggest change that I had to make. You still there?
Okay.
When you might be having internet
Wow.
issues. Oh, no, it's okay.
Off, but I
It's okay
heard
now.
most of what you said. Uh, yeah, I was off for about 20 seconds there, Aaron, but I
Yeah.
did hear the vast majority, and I think that you came across really well with that. And I remember everybody, I asked him what was one of the more recent things that he changed in his views just because of what he has learned. And so he told us about the situation with orangutans and monkeys and apes and humans and such. So that's
Well,
cool.
that wasn't really recent. I mean, if I wanted to go for more recent, I found out another
Yeah,
thing.
well, it was one that go. Let's go more recent.
Yeah,
That was
well,
more historic. That was back in Y2K time.
I mentioned that I joined the Satanic Temple because I had always been taught that a Satanist was somebody who believed in Satan. I didn't know that that wasn't true ever. When Anton LaVey started the Church of Satan back in 1966, he declared then that atheists or that Satanists were atheists. And then when Lucian Greaves started the Satanic Temple in 2013, he reiterates the same thing. But the difference between the Satanic Temple and the Church of Satan is the Satanic Temple is more an activist group. So their focus is protecting freedom of religion, protecting the First Amendment's provisions that Congress shall make no law establishing a state religion nor prohibiting other religions. So I had to admire that, and I've met with some Church of Satan people who lamented that COS had an opportunity for civil rights activism that they didn't take advantage of. So I become
Hmm.
a Satanist technically by fact that I paid $25 for a membership and I have spoken at their events. But again, it's for political reasons. It's not because of a belief in anything other than the Constitution. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in our rights therein.
Cool. What's your
And
observation of
I also found out I was a
younger?
nihilist. I do a show called Why Do You Believe, where
Okay.
I interview people who have different opinions
Okay.
from mine. And and
Uh-huh.
I'm open to be convinced that maybe they're right and I misunderstood something. And I interviewed a nihilist and I found out that I was in fact a nihilist because I'd been lied to about what
Oh,
a
really?
nihilist is. Like I'd been lied to about what
Okay.
a Satanist is, like I'd been lied to about what an atheist is. I remember the day that I realized that I was an atheist. was because I found out what the definition actually was, and that it wasn't what I was always told that it was. I was told that an atheist must have it must be a positive declaration or belief that there is no God. That's not true. It's an atheist is anybody who does not believe that there is a God. You can also have a belief that there is no God, and in fact, now I have a belief that there is no God, but that's a subset of the people who already don't believe that there is a God. So then I found out that a nihilist is not someone who believes in nothing, which is what I was always told, but is somebody who does not believe that that there is a purpose to life that is arbitrarily imposed externally. So again, if we don't think that everything happens for a reason, if we think that things just happen and sometimes they're coincidences, that technically is nihilism.
Okay. Let's go back to atheism, though, and tell me, you did give it a brief description, but let's talk about more about your thoughts on the correct definition of the word and the belief system.
I wrote a long article on this that you can find pretty easily. Aron Ra, Aronra, and the title of the passage is "If You Don't Believe in Any Gods, You're Atheist." It's a very long article, and I cite, I make a lot of historic examples. I quote all these different atheist organizations, a handful of atheist philosophers from the 20th century, and even dating back into the 17th century, back in the 1600s, to the first people who ever identified as atheist. They defined atheism as not having a God belief, as not believing the claims of religion. And then the first two people to identify under the banner of atheism both came up with different words to define someone who also has a belief that there is no God. But they both agreed that an atheist is someone who did simply this: does the subject have a God belief? Yes means atheist, or yes means a theist. Anybody that believes in a God is a theist. If the subject does not have a God belief, they're atheist. And yes, that means that that a shovel is atheist, that a baby is atheist. Matter of fact, one of these guys, was it Matthias Knudsen? I think it was Matthias Knudsen who said that babies are atheist. They have no idea of a God.
Where would you put the word agnostic in there, or just give our audience your feelings? What's that word mean?
What does agnostic mean? Huxley
Yeah.
invented this word, and he didn't understand it himself when he invented it. He was trying to describe people who speak beyond what they can actually know, and his definition doesn't really work with the word that he invented. Prior to his inventing this word, if you go to, he did this in like 1845, and prior to that, Webster's 1828 dictionary already listed atheism as not having a belief in God. So it, Huxley's issue was with strong atheism. He didn't like when people said there is no God for the same exact reason that we would say that there are no leprechauns. I've argued with Pastor Bob Enyart of Denver Bible Church. He said that he knew that there were no leprechauns. How do you know that there's no leprechauns, Bob? And he says, because there's no evidence of them. And I said, well, by that exact logic, do I not also know that there is no God? Of course, it goes a little deeper than that. It's not just that there's no evidence for them, it's also that there's evidence against them.
Respond though when you made the statement that you did. Did you guys lose me?
I
Mark,
think
you
we
there?
did lose you for a moment there.
Yeah,
How did he respond to you when you made that statement? That's what I asked.
I just realized with you mentioning this, I used to keep a record of this. I had a record of this whole conversation on a bulletin board that I owned, that had in the last year been shut down. The server no longer supports these. So I'm just realizing that I no longer have a record of that. That's a pity. That is a pity.
Well, it's
But
going to
I
be
remember
now,
what he
though.
said. I
Tell
remember
it
what he.
because tell it now because it's going to be a record because we keep all these recordings. So you'll
I
have
used to
it.
have all the links,
Yeah.
everything, so that you could go back and listen to the recording of him saying it. And then what he said in response to that was he said that there is evidence, and he cited these scientific studies that he said this or that. But the problem is, I mean, when we're on the radio show, he can say that because that's the advantage of a live debate. You can just make up whatever you want. You can say that, you've got studies that say this or that when they don't, and there's no way to check it on the fly. And it's impolite to call a man a liar until you can. You better not call somebody a liar until or unless you can prove right then in the moment that what they said is false, and not just that what they said is false, but that they either knew it was false when they said it was true, or they had no way to know whether it was true or false when they said it was true anyway. But the thing is, he cited 2 or 3 studies that he said this thing that was supporting his position. So I got him to agree to a written debate after this, and that was what I had on my bulletin board, where I
Okay.
was able to look up his citations and read them to realize they did not say what he said they did, not at all. So I was able to put the links up and show what they really did say.
Very
So
cool.
he did some very dishonest things, like talking about his support for how the world was 6,000 years old, for example, was something to do with mitochondrial Eve, because he didn't understand mitochondrial Eve at all either. And when you have this range of ages that she could be, you have the median or the mean, which is the most probable answer. But if the slowest rate would be this, the fastest rate would be this. The absolute fastest rate would put her at 6,000 years ago. So they know that's wrong because we have history showing that there were already nations all around the world more than 6,000 years ago. So we know that the mother of all mankind could not even hypothetically have already existed, but that was his argument anyway. But then when I show that the same study he cited also put mitochondrial Eve in Africa, well, then he balked because he's a white supremacist who refused to accept that all humanity could have come from Africa.
Ah, jeez. That's sad. Oh, wow. So what is it that you hope you can learn and improve your knowledge base about over the next 10 years, let's say? What
It's
is it
not, while it is important that the things I understand are actually true, because it matters to me. The truth matters more than whatever I might rather believe. Whereas, to my experience, a believer, right, the belief matters more to them than whatever the truth is.
yeah, it's probably
That's the
true.
fundamental problem. When they tell me ridiculous things like science doesn't support evolution, I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Let's have this conversation. Let me show you the volumes, the literal mountains of evidence. The only possible explanation is that evolution is the only explanation of biodiversity, scientific or otherwise. Let's talk about it. They won't. They won't. They want to believe in a fantasy that there was a golem spell, breathe into it the breath of life, everybody comes from that. That's they're not going to explore the facts on this at all. But it's not about my understanding. I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm looking at the importance of a secular government. The greatest thing about the United States was that we were the very first explicitly secular government ever. And so we were the first nation, and for a little while, the only nation that offered or could offer religious freedom. Everybody else, you had the Catholics killing the Protestants, the Sunnis killing Shias, Hindus killing Sikhs, and so on. The only place where
That's
you could have peace between these religions is when the state does not promote one over the other and does not oppress any of them.
an interesting observation. Very interesting, Aron. So how many countries do you think, or places you can live in the world? Let's not use the word country. How many places in the world are there now that you can have a same feeling of religious freedom?
That's the beautiful thing. I mean, the Europe especially thought that this was a great idea, what the United States has done. So they emulated, they did what we did, where our own country has very recently forsaken that. And that's why, sadly, we no longer have religious freedom here. Because while it is true that I speak out for secularism and that I criticize the administration and that I still peacefully assemble to air my grievances, and my channel is based entirely on me giving criticism against the current regime and against the Heritage Foundation and against religious extremism and creationism in general, along with flat Earth and all of that other stuff. And while I have given invocations as a member of the Satanic Temple, all of that would imply that I have freedom of speech. But just months ago, the president put out in his executive order or something number 7, where he wanted to make a list of terrorists identified as people who disagree with Christianity, and more specifically with Christian bigotry. So if I believe in gay rights, then that puts me on the list as being a terrorist because I don't hold to traditional Christian values with regard to the family. That's how they phrase that. So if I am not down with hating gays, if I believe that other people, that the people of other races and such have more disparity, if somebody who is black and a woman and not a Christian, that they experience more adversity in their general life than I do, well, then that makes me woke. So woke people are considered at risk for terrorism now. If I disagree with if I have an economic disagreement, I've taken a number of political exams and they put me as a social democrat, not as a democratic socialist, but I'm very close to. So I don't say that I'm a socialist because that would be a lie. I do want strong social programs, and that's what that's what the extreme right would put me as a socialist, only because I want social programs. They think that everything is socialist that isn't radically right wing. I'm still technically a capitalist, but they wouldn't say so. So there's a whole bunch of reasons that I would be on the list of potential terrorist, simply because if you're against fascism, right, well, then they're going to categorize you as as Antifa, right? If you're, and this is interesting too, because if the federal government says that anyone who is anti-fascist, who is against fascism, is against them and is their enemy, does that not implicitly mean and admit that the government is fascist?
Interesting comment. That's yeah.
Yeah,
I don't have, yeah.
I mean, you'd have to be.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
If you declare that anti-fascists are your enemy, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you're
I
saying
get
you're
it.
fascist.
I get it.
So he wants to sue anybody in the press that says anything he doesn't like. So we've lost the freedom of press. He wants to promote Christianity as a state religion. So there goes the first provision of the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law establishing religion. Well, no, now he will, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, where he can take any other religion, any non-Christian
I think
religion,
Aaron's
and to
breaking
oppress
up.
them or demonize them, which in some cases they do literally. Freedom of religion, we've lost freedom of the press, freedom of speech. He will again sue any of his critics, whether they're in the
Yeah, I
press or
think
not. Administration has fought against every single provision of the First Amendment and several other amendments as well. Did we lose you again?
No, it was on your end, I think, Aaron.
yeah, I
Mark
think
and I could hear, but most of that came through. I would think if maybe you could repeat that, just the last, let's say 15 seconds, because that's really meaningful. Just sort of repeat the last 15 seconds.
Yeah, your video was
Videos
frozen.
talking about, I made a video like Trump versus the First Amendment or Trump
Ah,
versus the Constitution,
okay, okay.
because literally every single provision of the First Amendment, Trump has imposed legislation or act or executive orders or something to contradict all of that, so that we are literally not even a free country anymore. And Trump even made the statement that without free speech you can't be a free country. And then a month later he said we had to repeal free speech when he specifically attacked the idea that you can burn a flag. Now he just wants to arrest people for burning a flag, but somebody got in there and said, no, you can't do that. Yeah, well, he said, well, if they burn a flag, then investigate them for terrorism and we'll arrest them. So he's going to find a way to remove you if you express your free speech that he does not like.
All right. That that's a it's an interesting observation and one that I think that people need to hear about. Appreciate it. Mark, I'm going to have to run. I've got where I went into this
Okay.
place I'm at. Would you continue the end? I wanted to thank Aron though right now and say thank you for being with us. And Mark, you continue. Sort of, you've got some great questions. Aron, it was
Yeah.
Mark's idea to have you and ask you to be on. And Mark has, I think, got some personal beliefs that are somewhat similar to yours. So I'd love to have the two of you be able to chat about them. And I do have to jump off, so I'm going to do it. Thank you so much for coming on. Really
My pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Really do. So, Mark, you
Yes.
continue, and I'm going to jump off. Thanks,
Sure,
guys.
Wayne. Have a good one, Wayne.
You bet.
We'll
Bye
talk to you
bye.
later. Bye. All right. So Aaron, you were on my show recently, probably a month ago. And I'm from Bangladesh. I am an ex-Muslim, so I belong to a Muslim culture. And then I was listening to you guys mostly on YouTube, and came to realize that I have no reason to believe in Allah or anything, any other god or gods. And yeah, that's why I'm really grateful that I did listen to atheist shows that were going on back then, because I was actually looking for if there were any evidence that proves that there is a God. Now, did anything like that happen to you? Did you look for uh, any evidence, or did you look for any support for your? Uh, how did you get out of your beliefs at
I
that?
was taught to believe all kinds of things when I was a kid, and I did believe all kinds of things. And so what mattered to me was that finding the truth of it. And so I started testing everything that I believed, whether it was belief in astral projection. I practiced transcendental meditation for years. When I believe empathy and telekinesis and all of this, and I tried to read about studies on them and Kirlian photography and a number of other things, and cryptozoology. I believed Bigfoot and the Loch Ness monster when I was a kid, and I tried to find the truth of all these things, and I kept coming up empty, that none of these were supported at all. So I don't. It's not that you have to prove something wrong in order to stop believing in it. I find that there was never good enough reason to believe it in the first place. And so when I realized that all of this particular thing that I'm studying right now could just have been made up by somebody, and if that would explain the whole thing. Somebody made it up. It didn't really happen. That explains it all. But there's no evidence to back that it might have actually happened. There's no mechanism by which it could have happened. Telekinesis or telepathy, either one of them. What is it that the brain does that neuroscientists don't know about? Is there an energy field some way that can be generated by the mind, that can move objects or that can communicate information? There's a means of passage between one brain and another. There isn't one. There's no mechanism, there's no means, there's no literally not even a possibility to consider. And so that's where a lot of my previous beliefs fell away.
Okay, let's go to some of the questions from our
Okay.
audience. Okay, so here is a question posted by Alicia. She says evolution is a scientific theory supported by evidence detailing how species diversify over billions of years through natural processes. Creationism is a belief system, often faith-based, asserting supernatural being designed and universe that design universe and life. Frequently interpreting religious texts literally. Any thoughts?
No, that's accurate. Creationism is favoring an argument from authority over facts. You either base your position on the evidence or you base it on an assumption of authority. And faith is an assumption of authority.
All right. Okay, so mm, there's another question. Debate often centers on whether life is a product of undirected natural processes or a purposeful divine creation, impacting views on human identity and purpose. Any thoughts?
Uh, asking any thoughts is pretty broad. Again, there's not a means, a mechanism, there's not a possibility for someone to be controlling how events happen with evolution, for example, going over millions of years. We're just expecting that a series of random events are going to ultimately accumulate in this one thing, um, versus that somebody's planning that's going to happen. There's another way. The process itself is deterministic, but there is not a possibility that it can be pre-planned or orchestrated or controlled. There's no way that there's no way that a being of any kind can devise a planet that devise a system wherein evolution or any series of other things will cumulatively reach this point. Much like when you lose your keys and you pray to God to win the football game, there is no way that the God can control the outcome of the game. And I find that everybody who prays their God to solve some problem for them, they don't think about the reality that God, if there was a God, your keys would just appear in your hand. You know, if it was going to answer your prayer at all, you know, why did no one foresee the 9/11 thing? Why did, if there was a God, why did the jet not stop in midair before hitting the building, hovering in midair, which would be impossible for a plane to do, and then move sideways somewhere to sit down gently in a field so that everybody could get off? That's Then God at least is using telekinesis or something like that, which isn't possible either, but it's not as bad as the way that people imagine that God's just going to control all of the interactions of it. And while we're supposed to have free will at the same time, which is again impossible, how can we have free will if God is making us do things? When God hardens Pharaoh's heart, it means that Pharaoh had no free will. So people are not thinking. It's not, religious belief is not rational. It's entirely emotional. It's what you believe what you want to believe because you want to believe it, not because there's any truth to it, because there isn't.
Okay. All right, here's a good one. Do you believe that there are aliens or extraterrestrials in the universe?
We have to be careful about what we mean by believe. because I don't make believe anything.
Is it
I think
possible?
it's statistically likely, it is statistically probable that given the vastness of the cosmos, almost certainly some kind of life must exist somewhere else. It can't just be here, right? 11 jillion galaxies, each one with hundreds of billions of planets. It's got to be somewhere other than just here. But that doesn't mean that extraterrestrial life knows about us or that they've ever been here.
All right. Why are we freaked out about aliens?
Why are we what?
Why are we freaked out when we hear about aliens?
People have, I find when I talk to somebody and I get into their head, I don't like what I find. In some people's minds, there's an awful lot of cobwebs where they haven't examined things. People tend to think that we are more important than we can be. They think that our planet is literally the center of the universe, that the entire universe orbits us. And I don't just mean the sun, I mean the entire universe orbits us. There are people who believe that. And they're not just flat earthers either. There are geocentrists who believe that the earth is round and that the sun is bigger than our planet and that our planet orbits the sun and all like that. But conversely, they also believe that the earth is the center of the universe. And out of 11 jillion other planets, that this is the only one with life on it because this is the one where God said abracadabra. And he created everything everywhere magically, literally magically, speaking it out of nothing, which means abracadabra. But if there was a God who did anything and he created all these other worlds, then why would the God not also put life on the other worlds? It's a ridiculous waste of everything to imagine that this is the only place where there is life. And if God did not create life, life comes about naturally, as Rabbi Jeremy England has posited, that life is an inevitable result of the result of of thermodynamics, and thus at any place where chemically it eventually will. And there's got to be other places, lots and lots and lots of other places where life would develop. And then look at the entire history of this world, how long this world has existed. I think this is the Drake equation, where you look at how long this world has existed, where we had no ability to communicate with anything else. 4 billion years of radio silence. So imagine, and how long is it going to be before we wipe ourselves out? So we go radio silent again. We got a window of a century, maybe or two, before we kill ourselves. Which I didn't used to think that we would, but then we elected Trump a second time, and now I think we might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought about Fermi paradox, like why there seems it seems to be nothing, but when you do the equations, calculations, there has to be some kind of life. Um, might not be what we recognize as life, but it could be like any
And the
other
ones
form.
with radio communication would have to
Mm,
be close to us too.
yes.
If not just for how long it takes for radio waves to get to us, but there's also attenuation to worry about. How would something even be intelligible over, if half a galaxy away?
Yeah. And also, I think this is what Michio Kaku or some other scientists classified civilization, and we are at zero. So one would control weather, and two would control the whole galaxy or something like that. So it goes like that, and so we're like at zero, and we have internet, and we have power, and all the we still use fossil fuels uh to
Which is stupid in itself, isn't it?
yeah.
How long has the fossil fuels existed? So when we discover them, we start burning it up, literally burning it up. So we could make plastics. We could do all kinds of things. There's a lot of things we could do with this resource, but let's just burn it, all of it, as soon as we can, so that there won't be any left. So that in the course of 2 centuries, it's all gone. In the course of one, we have these national crises where we're running out in just a single century. What are we going to do with the next century? We're going to lament how we used to have this resource, but we just burnt it up because we were stupid.
Yeah. Let's go back to one question. The question about secular state and secular humanism. Does secular humanism means you do not have you have no religion, or does a secular state, when you talk about secular state, does it protect all religion, and what is the difference there?
Secularism means you don't make decisions based on religion. So if religion is the sole reason for your action or policy, then you still haven't given a reason. It doesn't mean that you can't have religion. I would argue that we should treat religion differently, that we should treat it as make believe. I do. If you're going to make it's you can believe whatever you like as long as you say the word I believe in front of it, then you're protected. I no longer care what you're going to say after that because I don't care what you believe. The only thing that matters is what the truth is. And if you're going to say that, if you're going to assert a religious belief as if it was the truth, now we've got a problem. Because if you're going to say something is true, well, then you have to show the truth of it. And if you can't, then you just lied.
Right. All right. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. I'm going to show your channels. Here I'm going to your YouTube channel here. So, oh, this is your Patreon, I think. Hold on. This is in the way. Okay. The Zoom thing, okay, will go away. So this is Aron Ra, patreon.com/Aron Ra. It's his Patreon channel. I'll have the link in the chat also for people. And then go to his YouTube. So this is youtube.com/@Aron Ra. And then you'll find all the videos. I think most of the Trump video is here. Most of the videos you'll find here, videos, shorts, live, all kind of things. Okay, so thank you so much, Aron. We'd love to have you come back and do another session with us because Wayne wasn't here all the time. Maybe you get into a conversation as well next time you come on. We'd love to see you back again.
All right.
So, anything you want to end with?
No, I've just except that I am an activist professionally. This is my sole income. So if you like what I do, please consider supporting my efforts.
All right, thank you so much. We'll have this video sent to you as well for your use.